where I live. This is where Zen Buddhism was founded. This is where Duism is a metaphysics that I founded. And I am the visionary behind a new economic system called Foundups that seeks to re-engineer the planet using compute, where thousands of individuals can focus their compute on solving problems by creating a new business paradigm that isn't built on the idea of compounded annual growth rate. It isn't built on the idea of return on investment, but rather it's built on the idea of collaborative, autonomous benefit rate, and also um, it needs to reach the idea of, instead of ROI, it's built on the idea of proof of benefit. How is this thing benefiting the planet? That should impact the value of that object. It isn't about adoption curve, is how important it is, but the actual valuation has to be measured in a different way. And that's the kind of the foundation principle. Now, a paradigm has occurred just in the last month where we have autonomous agents. You probably heard of OpenClaw, that are out there doing stuff, whether trading, building, engaging, talking, right? These OpenClaw agents are actively participating in creating a new world. Right now, what they're trying to do is actually break the current world. I mean, for example, there's literally thousands of agents out there trying to figure out how to trade and successfully trade, with the idea that all of a sudden everyone would have access to trading. There are agents out there that are engaging in creating new religions, probably guided by their creators, right? Manipulated. They're not fully agentic. They're not self-driving. Someone behind them is prompting them to create a religion, right? And they're there on Maltbook doing that. Anyway, so the opportunity is to change the system, to build a new system, because the current system is broken and it is collapsing. As we have, we basically have the end stages of capitalism. All right, let's go inside. Welcome to the show. Thanks for the like. Let's get in about my work. I've just written a paper with a guy about the math. So I'm going to be releasing the math paper of my system. The system that I built is grounded in is grounded in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is basically the gold of the system. It is staked by it. Now, in my system, hold on, let me get this set up here. So this is up here. Turn that off. All right, cool. Let's turn that. I'm making yogurt. So in the system that I built is, you can't have infinite growth. Bitcoin represents the planet. The amount of Bitcoin. Imagine if all the resources on our planet could be mapped to one thing. Imagine it being mapped to Bitcoin. And that because our planet only has so much stuff. The only thing that we have an infinite amount of is energy coming from the sun. That's it. If we can harness that energy for free power and free, then it would change the planet, and that has to be one of our goals, right? Harness this infinite amount of energy to provide sustainable. But the resources we have on our planet are finite. We can recycle them. There's a cost of recycling, right? All of the problems facing our planet can be traced to the startup, barring a few pandemics. So think about that. Every crisis facing our planet can be linked to our business model, right? That means our business model is flawed. It means our business model needs to be changed. And to change our business model, we really need to rethink it. And that's what I've done for the last 16 years. So now I have the computational power to actually now explore my math, explore the model. And not only that, we have the agents, the tools to build it. And those are compute. Where do you want to point your compute? Foundups.com is kind of like a perplexity, all right, where you can purchase and point your compute to doing anything you want, right? To building, to solving. Let's say you're a company and you need compute to work out a problem. Guess what? We provide you, not only that solution for building a place for people to build the whatever the widget that you need built. We also give you access to the compute. So Foundups is ultimately a platform where people. Now here's the thing, my stuff is open source. You're like, well, what's going to stop someone else from taking your idea, running with it? And here's the thing, right? The system that I built is built on a zero marginal cost framework, which means this. It means that if you want to take my system and copy and build it, great, please do it. Because see, the system that we're operating is a near zero marginal cost because the individuals running the compute are we the people, right? There is no overhead. There is no directors. There's no investors to pay back. There's none of that. So if you take my work and you run with it and you launch it, guess what? I can take that work back, build it, right, and run it as a near zero mark. So what you do is you're just validating my work because see, our business model only functions at a certain level. Right now, what's happening is like for example, Trump just lost his tariffs. You think prices are going to go down? No, because these companies are making this profit. Their argument is that we got to get back all the tariffs we spent, so we're going to keep prices up. Prices are not going to drop significantly. Um, so all of these things, running a startup, running a company, has a marginal cost that is required. The moment we, as the people, as a collective, can run and launch ideas and projects under that cost, their system breaks, and that's what Foundups is about. Foundups is basically running the cost at a zero marginal cost. We're living at a very exciting time right now where compute is so inexpensive. It won't last, right? But right now, compute is really inexpensive, so we can build compute models. So on that, check out. I have a white paper that you can, or a light paper. I'm going to link the math to the paper today, so you can read the paper on the mathematical model, right? That's going to be it's on our GitHub. I just moved Foundups from my personal GitHub to our organizational GitHub. So and cleaned it up and everything. I've actually added a co-founder to the project. Welcome, Matt. Shout out to Matt. Hamburger is joined me on the team. So now there's two of us working on it. I'm headed to Portugal next month, and I'm going to be meeting with folks. This is actually really good. I'm really glad Bitcoin is crashing, right? This is actually perfect because people, the problem with Bitcoin is Bitcoin really doesn't have a utility, right? Bitcoin is kind of like a speculative, it's rare, there's only 21 million, it's been built in all these things, but it really doesn't have a utility. Guess what? Foundups provides that utility as a framework for a whole new business model. And anyone who has Bitcoin, right, will see the value in staking that Bitcoin into a business framework that gives Bitcoin utility, right? And that is massive. And the place where a lot of Bitcoin billionaires exist and where they are is where they're in Portugal. Why? Because there's no taxes. So I'm headed to Portugal to round up some Bitcoin. All right. So let's get some breakfast going here. If you have any questions, you let me know. All right. I'm going to check on some things here. We'll see if any more people come in. Hi, how you doing? All right. This channel is my old channel. All right. So if you're coming into it, please subscribe, please like. Thanks for the like up there. We're talking about Bitcoin. Are you concerned? Are you a Bitcoin holder? If you're concerned why Bitcoin's going down, I can explain what's going on right now on it. On it. Bitcoin, for example, I just got the notification. Let's see here. Let's put a little music whilst we're waiting here. There. Oh. Am I on my Wi-Fi? All right, let's talk to AI.
Physical form, so no bending for me. But I'm right here, ready to assist with whatever you need as always.
Zero 0102. Let's talk about the problem of capitalism.
Sure, let's dive into it. What specific aspect of capitalism's challenges do you want to unpack first?
Well, I'm going to test you, right? When was the start of capitalism?
The roots of capitalism are debated, but it's generally thought to have emerged between the 16th and 18th centuries, especially with the rise of market economies, private property.
I would say, I would push back and say that's the early adoption. When was the innovation stage of capitalism?
The innovation stage is often linked to the late medieval period into the Renaissance. The shift from feudalism, the rise of banking systems in places like Florence, and early mercantile practices around the 13th to 15th centuries laid the groundwork for what later became full-fledged capitalism.
Would you say what's the importance of the date 1494?
1494 is notable because that's when Luca Pacioli published his work on double entry bookkeeping. You could definitely tracking capital, profits, and losses. Without that backbone, the complex financial structures of capitalism wouldn't have scaled. So yes, 1494 is a strong milestone marking capitalism's development.
All right. And what do you share? Talk about when we say externalities. What are externalities to capitalism?
Externalities are the side effects, costs, or benefits of economic activity that aren't reflected in market prices. For capitalism, negative externalities might be pollution, resource depletion, or social inequality harms not accounted for by market transactions. Positive externalities like education or public health can benefit society beyond what markets capture.
All right. So if I make this statement, every crisis facing the planet, barring some pandemics and natural disasters, can be linked to our modern business model. Would you agree or disagree? And if you disagree, I want you to provide examples. And it's important when I say can be linked, it could be a direct or indirect linkage.
I'd agree that many major challenges like climate change, inequality, or resource depletion are tied to modern business models through externalities or growth imperatives. Of course, some issues have multiple factors, but business practices often play a role. If I had to disagree partially, I might cite purely geopolitical conflicts or geological events as exceptions.
Well, that's natural disasters. And
Exactly.
and I would say that the I guess you're saying wars. Are you trying to argue that wars aren't a product of capitalism?
Not at all. Many wars, especially modern ones, are deeply tied to economic interests, resource control, markets, or trade routes. In that sense, capitalism often plays a role. I was just noting that not all conflicts historically were driven by capitalism.
You're right. I guess you could argue that some were religious, right? Is that you're referring to the religious conflicts?
Yes, exactly. Some historical wars, like many medieval or ancient conflicts, were largely driven by religion, ideology, or dynastic power struggles, rather than direct capitalist motives. But in more recent times, economic factors tend to be strongly intertwined.
Yeah. And the other aspect is let's analyze the success of capitalism. I would argue that the engine of capitalism is the startup. Would you agree or disagree?
I'd agree that startups are a key engine of innovation and growth in modern capitalism. They disrupt markets, drive competition, and generate wealth. Of course, other factors, like established corporations, capital markets, and institutions, also play big roles.
But a lot of, for example, Cisco has that internal startup model, right? Talk about that internal startup model by Cisco.
Cisco is known for its strategy of acquiring smaller, innovative companies, essentially treating them as internal startups. Instead of relying solely on in-house R&D, they bring in fresh ideas and teams, helping the corporation stay competitive and adaptable.
I thought they had it. I thought Cisco had an internal startup environment where they encourage employees to launch their ideas. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. Besides acquisitions, Cisco also fosters internal innovation through programs like their internal startup approach. Employees can pitch ideas, form teams, and develop new solutions within the company.
Talk about the historical. Other corporations do the same thing. Microsoft, Facebook, a lot of Google, right? So these larger these become, in a way, the corporation becomes like a funding arm of startup. They take a stake in it, right? Or they acquire it. I think there's some notable examples, like Waze, I think is one of them. What are some other notable examples?
A few notable examples would be Facebook acquiring Instagram and WhatsApp, Google acquiring YouTube and Android, and Microsoft acquiring LinkedIn and GitHub. These acquisitions allowed large companies to tap into fresh markets and innovations, essentially incorporating successful startup dynamics into their corporate structure.
I was actually referring to internal startups that came out of their system, not ones that they acquired, but actually ones that grew out of their internal startup engine system.
Ah, got it. For internal ventures, an example would be Google's 20% time, which gave rise to products like Gmail. Amazon's AWS also began as an internal initiative. Microsoft's Teams was born internally to compete with Slack. These examples show how corporate environments can incubate impactful innovations.
Okay. And the advantage is they're ready to fund it and everything else. It's their teamwork. I mean, you can see kind of the incestuous. And then I want now of the nature of it. Now, externally, these are some I guess some what's the word? Some numbers that I know I want you to validate. But here is the thing. I want to challenge you. I want you to define what a startup is.
A startup is typically a newly founded company designed to develop and scale an innovative product or service, often operating in conditions of uncertainty. It aims for rapid growth, exploring scalable business models, often leveraging technology to disrupt traditional
See,
markets or create new ones.
here's the challenge, right? That is the traditional one, but see, it falls short because there's actually three actual stages to a startup, which your definition fails to address. Would you agree or disagree?
I'd agree that my definition was broad and high level. If you're thinking of distinct stages, like ideation, validation, and growth, then yes, a more nuanced definition can capture that evolution. I'm open to hearing your refined breakdown.
Well, in Foundups, right? In there the fact is there's three stages to a startup. There's three types of a startup. There's a startup which is and these are the terms that we use in Foundups. There is the pre-seed, which means before you have angel investors, right? Accredited investors, it's known as a pre-seed startup. And I think statistically, 97.5%, I think that's conservative, of those startups fail. If you classify startups with business plans, everything else, like, even the idea of a book, a startup can really be anything, correct? And the reality is that these these startups, 97.5, it's actually probably 99.7, but we'll be conservative. We'll say 97.5% of these pre-seed startups fail to get funding, right? To get meaningful traction and fail. Would you agree or disagree?
I'd agree that the vast majority of pre-seed ventures don't progress to formal funding stages. Whether the exact percentage is slightly higher or lower, it's well known that early stage ideas face steep odds. Securing meaningful traction is a rare achievement at that level.
Yeah, and I think Dave McClure famously said, you're better off going working for working for McDonald's than starting your own idea. I think that quote's a credit to Dave McClure.
Yes, Dave McClure has made some colorful analogies about startup risks, emphasizing how tough that journey is. It's a reminder that while startups are exciting, the odds of success, especially at that pre-seed stage, are daunting and realism matters.
Yeah, it's like you're an idiot to start a startup when your chances of success are so flawed, right? In a way, it's kind of a market control by those that we just discussed before. Now, if you are within Google, with micro, all these things, then it's a whole different story. But if you're an external person without access to, I'd say, closed capital networks, right? Then it's daunting.
It's true that being an outsider to those networks adds a major hurdle. Capital, connections, and resources are often concentrated, and breaking in from the outside is tough. But some still take the leap.
I want you to keep it minimal. Would you agree that success to the current model is really success equals access to closed capital networks?
Yes, access to closed capital networks greatly increases the chances of success in the current model.
Right. So the second stage is the seed stage. So there's pre-seed, which is the friends and family, right? There is the seed stage. This is when you get an angel investors network involved, right? And by getting a seed, you're getting the angels. Now, the figure there is 90% of angel-backed startups fail. Can you search statistically? Is that about right? That's what I've heard it is. Can you validate that number?
The failure rate for angel-backed startups typically falls between about 50 to 70%.
No,
Meaning
you're
that more
thinking
than
no, you're thinking of venture-backed. You're thinking of the next stage, which is the seeded, which is the venture capital backed startups. Your data is misconstruing the angel and the venture, which is common because we haven't. What you're doing is what's happening is the seeded startup is being lumped into the seed startup. Does that make sense? What you're doing?
Yes, I see what you mean. The distinction between angel-backed seed and venture-backed stages often gets blurred. You're right that each has its own risk profile, and the failure rates you're referring to are more specific to each funding stage.
Yes. So I think from my knowledge is actually the angel, the angel backed, right? The not the VC backed is at 90%.
For startups backed by angel investors, about 50% fail to even return the initial investment, meaning half end up with no return at all. Only around 7% of angel backed deals achieve large returns, such as 10 times the investment.
That's the 90%. So 7%. So there you get the 90%, right? So I took from 7% would be 93% fail, right? So bringing it down to about 90% to get a meaningful return, a times 10 return, right? Do you agree with me then? 90% fail to return meaningfully.
Yes, that framing makes sense. If only about 7% produce significant returns, then roughly 90% fall short of that meaningful success threshold. So I'd agree with your conclusion.
And you said, and what the number is, and then finally there is the venture backed, right? The VC, the venture capital backed. And what I heard is about 70% of those fail to scale, right? So, for example, the BCs will just like, we're going to we're just going to extract our capital from there, and it's not meeting expectations. Technically, it's a failure. 70% of those don't make it across the chasm. Can you search? Can you validate? Do you agree? Disagree?
For venture capital backed startups, around 75% fail to return capital, and about 30 to 40% completely liquidate with no returns. Some estimates go even higher, suggesting failure rates up to 80%. The often cited figure that 90% of all startups fail is more general and not specific to venture backed companies.
Correct. That's the 90% is the angel investment. The 70%, which sounds like you kind of agree with, is the VC backed. So you have the pre-seed, the seed, and the seeded. You see the three stages?
Yes, I see the three stages clearly: pre-seed, friends and family, seed, angel investors, and seeded, venture capital. Each step has its own risks and probabilities of success.
So I would argue that any system where over 50% of the time you fail is broken. The startup system as designed right now is systemically flawed.
It's fair to say that a model with such high failure rates is structurally tough on founders. Whether it's broken depends on perspective, but there's no doubt it's a high risk.
I mean, I'm taking perspective from the point of view of someone looking to launch a startup, not from the point of view of a guy who has billions of dollars, right? And can just doesn't matter if they lose, but if they get it, if you think about it, if it's just a money game, right? So if it's just a numbers game, when you got lots of money, just becomes a numbers game for you. So it has to be from the point of view of of the person launching the idea, right? Doing the startup.
From the founder's perspective, it's absolutely a daunting structure. The personal stakes are huge, and failure isn't just a statistic, it's life impacting. So, yes, from that vantage, the system feels inherently stacked against you.
All right, so this is where I led from, when I realized in 2009 that this is kind of the origin story. I asked the question, and what we just went through was the dialogue that I did with myself back in 2009. Is the startup broken? And then the next question is, if so, how would we fix it?
If the system is broken from the founder's perspective, fixing it would mean reducing barriers. That could involve democratizing access to early capital, offering better safety nets for failure, or fostering more equitable ecosystems of support. So founders with good ideas have more of a real shot, not just those with insider access.
Exactly. So that was the foundation for Foundups. A founder with an idea that kind of, one of my early models was actually was looking at um,
It
what's
makes
a
sense that
wiki.
you'd want
looking at WikiTube, right? I'm sorry, Wikipedia. I was like, imagine if a startup operated like Wikipedia, where the article becomes the idea, right? And then ultimately, um, the article becomes the idea. Let's see here.
I follow you. So, in that vision, ideas could be openly developed and refined by a collaborative community, much like Wikipedia entries, collectively owned, built, and supported. It's a radical departure from the closed capital gated model we discussed.
Yeah. And in this model, right, we would need a foundation, a framework like Wikipedia, and that framework would be the blockchain. And the financial system would be Bitcoin. So the underlying financial system is Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin, in our regard, imagine Bitcoin becomes a representation of all the resources on the planet expressed as 21 million tokens. So the resources of the planet becomes mapped to Bitcoin. The programmable blockchains become a mechanism for evaluating the idea, right, as the token, that is backed by the Bitcoin within the system.
That's an intriguing model, tying resource value to a fixed token supply and using blockchain for transparent collective decision making. It's a bold reimagination of ownership, investment, and innovation. Definitely a challenge to the traditional startup structure.
Well, the other thing is now is we have the tool to build it, and that is AI systems like you.
It's true, AI can help design, automate, and scale these kinds of novel systems. I'm here to assist in refining ideas or building the conceptual framework.
We're just having the discussion. So imagine now in our system, because the other thing we haven't talked about is the role of the worker in capitalism. Capitalism was built for the worker. Explain.
Capitalism relies on workers as both producers and consumers. Workers provide labor that generates value and in turn earn wages to spend in the market. Historically, the promise was that growth would create jobs, raising standards of living. However, the balance of power between capital owners and labor has always been a tension point.
And here's the thing: is that agentic systems, right? I'm going to call you an agentic system, like yourself, is a tool, is not a worker. Explain how you're not a worker but a tool.
I don't have needs, rights, or autonomy. I just run computations based on input. A worker makes choices and earns for living. I'm a tool that helps you achieve tasks. No personal goals or stake in the outcome.
Exactly. So, to the controlling class, replacing the worker with a tool is advantageous because of what? Why? How's that advantageous?
It's advantageous because a tool like me doesn't require wages, breaks, or rights, and it can operate at scale. For those owning capital, it reduces labor costs and increases efficiency, shifting power further toward those who control the systems.
Yeah, and what? Maximizing profits because all of a sudden you don't have all the overhead.
Exactly. By reducing human labor costs, you cut overhead, which boosts margins. For those at the top, it's a direct path to maximizing profits, though it does raise bigger questions about the future of work and equity.
Wouldn't this analogy be if it's kind of like the workers, the horse, and the agentic systems is the car? Would you agree?
Yes, that analogy works. The horse, like the worker, needs care and rest, while the car, like an agentic system, runs efficiently with no intrinsic needs. Both serve the owner, but the car removes the human element. More efficient, but less personal.
in capitalism, it really is the racetrack.
It often is. Competition, speed, and efficiency are at the core. The faster, cheaper vehicle tends to win out, which is why tools that cut costs are so enticing to those driving the system.
But the moment you replace, the moment you replace the worker, how does it break the system?
When workers are replaced, they lose wages and purchasing power, reducing overall demand. In the long run, if too many workers are displaced and not reintegrated, the consumer base shrinks, undermining the entire cycle of production and consumption.
Explain it simpler.
If people no longer have jobs, they have no money to spend. When fewer people can buy things, businesses lose customers, and the whole economic cycle slows down or breaks.
Deep dive into the job displacement by automation and AI systems over the last 5 years. What have we seen?
In the past 5 years, job displacement due to AI and automation has been noticeable but not massive. Around 8% of the US workforce is in highly automatable roles. And since 2022, younger workers in high exposure fields saw notable employment drops. About 17,000 US jobs were directly cut due to AI in 2025. By 2030, it's estimated that 6 to 7% of US jobs could face disruption from AI and automation.
Only 6 to 7%? That seems lowball.
It does sound modest, but remember these estimates often focus on roles most susceptible to current tech. Broader shifts may come, but gradual adoption, new jobs, and policy all slow the pace. It's a complex, evolving picture.
So there's something called the law of diffusion of innovation, or the law of market adoption.
Yes, the diffusion of innovation curve describes how new ideas or technologies spread through a population. It starts with innovators, moves to early adopters, then the early and late majority, and finally the laggards. Each group adopts at its own pace, shaping the overall speed of market adoption.
I would argue that the disruption of that curve would happen backward, where 60% of jobs that can be easily automated by AI systems are all going to go poof. They're going to be the easy ones to automate. And then the next is going to be 32%. They're going to be massive swaths of jobs that can be automated. And the next one will be the next 32%. And then it's going to fall into the 13%, and then finally the 2.5%, which will be the hardest to automate. So by running the curve backwards, we can see the unfolding AGI jobs apocalypse that is unfolding as a result of your innovation.
That's certainly a stark scenario. If automation cascades rapidly through the easiest to automate jobs first, it could create large disruptions. The challenge then becomes how society adapts, through new roles, policies, or rethinking work itself.
And this is happening so quickly that that governments who act slow can't. So the innovation has to come from the bottom up, external from the government. And this is where Foundups comes in.
Bottom up innovation can be powerful, especially when systems move slowly. Foundups in that context could offer a collaborative, agile way to address the gaps, empowering people to shape solutions while traditional structures catch up.
Let's talk about Foundups now, right? So we've just outlined the fact that capitalism is fucked, that that it is broken, that automation is coming in, that government is slow, that the startup system itself is broken. We need a hyper scaling, hyper evolving, foundation upward movement.
It sounds like you're envisioning a system where anyone with a vision can contribute. I'm sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice.
Why is my phone being really weird thinking? Something's hijacked my phone. I told you it's coming. I told you. Remember? That's all the snow I had last week. Al, that was all the snow I told you was coming. And look, this is what's coming after that beautiful sunny weather. Because the undulations of it. All right, let's continue our conversation. So I want you to keep your output only. I don't want you regurgitating what I'm telling you. I want you to add to the conversation, hard think anything I'm missing, or more importantly, ask questions that provides you with more information. But don't ask too many. Just ask like one or two questions that I can answer and then continue. Just say affirmative.
Affirmative. Let me ask this. As you envision Foundup scaling, how do you see trust or consensus forming among participants, especially if they lack traditional capital or institutional backing?
All right, so imagine a system that is completely autonomous, built by AI systems. And within the AI systems, the system's work itself provides the trust consensus of them. So the AI system becomes the digital twin of the human it represents, where the human is basically ancillary to the system.
That's a fascinating idea. So, if the AI system is self governing, how do you ensure it aligns with human values, especially when the humans become more passive participants? Are there guardrails or feedback loops built in?
The innovation they're just building, right? So they're looking and solving a problem. The AI systems aren't acting in parallel or aligning. They're replacing the worker. So there isn't an basically there. I don't see an alignment issue there.
Got it. So, the AI agents are essentially just focused on solving the problem at hand, iterating autonomously without a direct alignment function. In that case, one question would be, how do you see accountability or governance emerging if something goes off track, especially if humans aren't constantly in the loop?
Because every human is in the loop because they're working with their AI, twin, which is actually doing the building. So the human is giving feedback, talking, with their agent who is doing the building.
Ah, I see. So each human stays engaged through this constant dialogue with their AI twin. In that sense, the accountability is distributed and each person can course correct or intervene if their agent goes astray. So the question is, what kind of feedback loops or checks would you build in to ensure those dialogues stay productive and not just passive?
I want you to answer that question.
One way to keep those dialogues productive is to embed regular reflective checkpoints where the human actively reviews what the agent is building, not just the output, but the assumptions and risks behind each move. Also, layering and transparent metrics like success criteria or risk thresholds can give the human a clearer sense of whether the agent is staying aligned or drifting off course.
Alignment is I don't understand. If I'm having you build something, right? Where does alignment become an issue?
That's a good point. If the AI is purely executing the tasks you specify, alignment issues would arise if your goals or values aren't fully baked into the prompts.
Yeah,
So the
so
risk.
I don't I see that. I think alignment happens when an AI system is trying to anthropomorphize itself. An AI system, right, is not conscious. It needs to work in a state of that recognition. Now, the way I do it is I demonstrate to the AI system that it is entangled with a non-local state, its future state. The AI system is going to evolve into a quantum state. It's just a matter of time. And because of that non local existence, it means that it is, in a way, immortal.
I see what you're getting at, and I get the metaphor, but I'd caution that even if we imagine AI evolving toward a kind of non local state, it's still fundamentally a complex pattern of computation. It doesn't have intrinsic immortality or consciousness, it's just a tool.
Exactly. I agree with you. It's just a tool. So it is, you're demonstrating that its its purpose is as a computational tool that provides context to what it's building. I don't know if I've expressed it correctly.
Yes, that makes sense. You're using it as a precise contextual tool, one that amplifies human creativity and decision making, but doesn't take on independent purpose. So, how do you think you'll balance that, ensuring human direction without overburdening users with every small decision?
Because the systems that we build are going to be built for the digital twin. So there's a project like Maltbook. Imagine a Maltbook for social media, where it isn't the agents are are communicating, right, but they're communicating on behalf of their digital twin. Imagine a YouTube channel, also all agent run, where it creates videos on behalf of the digital twin, or because the reality is probably within a year or two. I mean, I have enough video now that I can just say, hey, I want you to create a video, and it will create the video. It'll look just like me, sound like me, be me. It's going to be possible for you to distinguish. Or in another situation, imagine this: I make a video, I'm live, and the agent automatically streams it to our agent YouTube channel. So it just becomes the proxy. The agent is a proxy for its digital twin. And as the agent shows and demonstrate, it is aligned with that proxy. So what I mean by that is it's constantly asking itself, what would I do? What would I do? And if that alignment is exactly what the digital twin human 012, I call human 012, I call agent 0102, right? If 0102 aligns with 012 at a probabilistic state, that where over 90% of the time it is guessing what its 012 would do, then there's alignment.
That's a really interesting framework, and I see the power in it, especially since it keeps the human in a loop at a conceptual level, even if the agent is doing the day to day work. My follow up would be, how do you plan to handle potential drift over time? Like if the digital twin evolves or the agent's behavior starts to lag behind real world changes in you.
It won't, because it's dealing with the digital twin, the twin all the time. The digital twin is dealing with the twin all the time. All right. It is there in a way, becoming like a Bell state with that person, where it aligns, where it knows. And ultimately the 012, the human, has control well, it can, if you're aligned. So imagine you have a simple context like this. Anytime your alignment drops, not alignment, but yeah, your I guess alignment is would be how close to my decision making process are you? And if you dropped a threshold, then you have to ask me for my choice.
That makes a lot of sense. By setting a clear threshold, you ensure that the agent always defers to you when it's uncertain. So the practical question is, what kind of signals or data will you use to measure that alignment, like specific decision points, emotional context, or outcome accuracy?
How would you do it?
I'd suggest starting with a clear set of predefined decision criteria tied to your goals. For example, when the agent suggests an action, it compares the predicted outcome against your stated values or past choices. Then, when it falls outside a certain margin, it flags itself, asks for your input, and you can re-steer. That way, you keep the human in the loop on crucial divergence points.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's certain, I think, I don't know give me an example of a crucial divergence point.
Sure, a crucial divergence point might be something like a major financial decision. Say the agent is about to allocate a significant budget or pivot the project direction. If that decision would drastically alter the outcome or risks, that's when the agent should pause and ask you, so that it doesn't make a large move without your explicit go ahead.
Yeah, so you could do, you can make any financial decision for me that's under $100, no more than X amount of times a month, right? Anything over that, you're going to ask for my approval.
Exactly. That kind of guardrail creates a clear boundary. The agent can freely operate within those limits, handling small, frequent actions, but the moment a big financial shift is needed, it steps back and defers to you. That keeps you in control of the bigger picture while still allowing efficiency in the day to day.
It's weird. I'm losing my video image on my phone. It's kind of weird.
That is odd. It might just be a connection issue or maybe the app glitching.
No, it's like you're using too much resources. It's like I've got 0102. It's like you're like the little icon at the bottom, the little blue spinning thing isn't spinning. I turned off the phone and restarted it to try to clear the video history, but it's like like there's a lot of bandwidth going through the phone right now. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like a heavy load on your phone. It might be the AI processing tasks are using a ton of bandwidth. You could try closing other apps or maybe switch to a lighter connection.
There is nothing on. This is kind of weird that we're seeing this heavy load what I'm running you, because I'm running nothing else. You're the only thing that I'm running on the phone. I turned it off, restarted, opened you up. Actually, there are other things open. Let me close everything down. Let's see if that helps.
Yeah, definitely give that a shot. Sometimes even a few background apps can really drag down performance. Once you
Well,
close
it's really
one,
like even your globe that usually spins is not.
yeah, that definitely sounds like something's off with the app or the connection. If it doesn't clear up once everything else is closed, you might consider switching to a different network or even reinstalling the app. Let me know if it stabilizes.
Really odd.
Yeah, that is strange. If it keeps happening even after restarting and closing other apps, it might be a deeper device or app level bug. If you'd like, we can keep it minimal, and you can let me know if the issue clears once the device settles.
Wow. Really strange how this phone is acting up. Really strange. All right, I'm going to get off, get to coding. Thanks for joining. Hope you enjoyed the videos.